Good afternoon, Journey of Youth. My name is Bruno. If you're new to my channel, please subscribe, like, and comment. It's been a while. But I've come to a conclusion now. And it's taken a while, but I've come to a conclusion. Let me tell you a story. I was born in Angola. I was born during the time when the civil war in Angola was still going on. And at the time, bear in mind I was born in 91, and the war in Angola, the civil war, ended in 2002. Then in 2003, I came to the UK. Let me tell you what was happening in Angola at the time. There was a lot of hunger. There was a lot of crime. There was a lot of despair and family, people dying, a lot of death. There was a lot of that going on. A lot of struggle. The country wasn't moving forward because of this consistent war. And the war was between this party called UNITA and MPLA. For those who were old enough to follow the news here in the UK with what was going on in Angola, then you're familiar with this. The UNITA leader at the time was Savimbi, and the MPLA leader was José Eduardo dos Santos. And the government that was in power at the time was MPLA. And UNITA, let me tell you, the greatest weapon that exists isn't guns, it's the media. If the government has control of the media, that is the greatest weapon they can have. It's not nuclear, it's not guns, it's not none of that. It's not disease, it's none of that. It's the media. The mind is a powerful thing. Growing up in Angola at the time during the civil war, bear in mind, there was no such thing as internet, really, especially in Africa. There was no internet, let's just put it that way. Internet did exist, but it wasn't a thing. We highly depended on mainstream media, which is the news. At the time, we only had one channel, actually. The whole country only had one channel. One channel. And we had newspapers, those two, to stay informed, because mainly the hot spot for the war were in the countryside, in the provinces of Angola. And UNITA was trying to, their main objective was to take over Luanda, because that's where the parliament was, that's where the powers that be was. Soon as they could take over Luanda, they can infiltrate Luanda, which is the capital, then it would have been easier for them to control the narrative and control and take over the country, basically. Their main objective was to get to Luanda, the capital. It's like trying to get to London. Like if the war breaks out in the West Midlands, East Midlands, and then we trying to get to London because that's where the power is. That's the power that holds the country is based in London. That's what was happening. But one thing that MPLA had to do that worked perfectly on their behalf wasn't because they had more guns. Bear in mind, the UNITA leader was extremely smart, man. He was extremely smart. He spoke more than 5 languages. He spoke French, English, Portuguese, all the native language of Angola, Spanish, Italian. He spoke everything. And every time he did a speech, it wasn't a written speech. He just spoke from the heart. But at the time, right? At the time, bear in mind, MPLA had power of the country, were the leaders of the country, and they had control of the media. Everything they were presenting to us in the newspapers, on the news in the capital of Luanda, as growing up at that time, all the information updates that we were getting from the war, the narrative was that UNITA were the bad guys. They kept brainwashing us with the news. The newspapers, everywhere we read was UNITA is the evil guys. They were the bad guys. And that's how efficient they used the media to shift the narrative. Even if UNITA Savimbi delivered a very powerful message, the message could never get to us in the capital, because who controlled the media was the government at the time, which is MPLA. The reason why I'm telling you guys this story is because what's happening in the UK, especially with people getting locked up for social media posts or podcasts and all that sort of incident that's been happening in the UK, it isn't because what we're saying on social media is offensive. It's because the government has the power is slipping away from the government, and that power is the media. Remember, 20 years ago, we highly dependent on the BBC, ITV, all the mainstream media. We highly dependent on them to feed us everything that was happening in the country and worldwide. With the Iraq war, they fed us what they wanted us to believe. You understand? And that is the best way to control a population. But now, because of so many independent media, like podcasts and people having their own YouTube channels, having their own X account, Instagram, like, people are shifting from the mainstream media to independent media more. And the government doesn't like that because they don't have control of the narrative. They can't control the population that way. The government knows that they can't use force. They can't use guns. They can't use force, even though they are using, arresting people, which is a form of force. But when you have full control of the media, that's when you have the power over the people. And this is the war that the government is fighting against us, and what we're fighting against the government. And also at the same time, you have to infiltrate people's home from the inside. If you want to destroy a family, it's like when you watch gangster films or The Godfather, the enemy always starts from the inside and outwards. You understand? And this is what's happening to Britain. It's even like during slavery at the time, they had to start from the inside with our leaders at the time, our kings and queens and the leaders of Africa of that time. It had to be from the inside and then outwards. If you want to destroy a nation, you do it from the inside. The Trojan, is it the Trojan horse or the Persian horse? That they had to use that horse in order for them to infiltrate that community, the Persian community. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comment, guys. But that's how you destroy a nation, and this is that's how the government is doing. We as the public are focusing on the wrong things. We are focusing on immigration, when in reality this division is being caused on purpose. It's being caused. The government is playing both sides. It's playing both sides. And then here we go, digital ID, introducing the problem. What's how does it go? I forgot how it goes. Problem, solution, and I forgot how it goes. But anyways, the problem is always caused by the government, and then they give the solution to the problem. The solution has always been there. They're doing this on purpose. They want to destroy us from the inside. And this is why we are fighting against each other. When you come to think of it, really, we are focusing on the wrong thing. The enemy isn't immigration. The enemy isn't the people raising the flags. The problem is the government. This is the oldest trick in the book. And so what the government wants to do, he wants to get control of all these independent media. A great example is during the 13th of September, Tommy Robinson March, where the mainstream media kept telling us it was 110,000 people that turned up, when in reality, almost 3 million people turned up for the event. Control the narrative. And this is what the Angolan government did in the past during the war. Now, we've got so much access to social media now where we looking back at the war. We're looking back at the speeches that Savimbi gave and everything that Savimbi was saying. Now we've got access to that. The Angolan people are watching that and saying, wait a minute. Savimbi was right the whole time. The whole time. A lot of people, 99% of the population in Angola were against UNITA at that time during the war, because we didn't understand the narrative. We didn't understand what was going on. We were being fed one side of the story. It's like when you hear a story about a relationship, or one of your friends or a girl is telling you, oh, he abuses me, or he does this to me, like, or an incident that had happened. You always have to hear both sides of the story. You have to hear both sides of the story. But the government, what they do is they give you one side of the story, their side of the story, not the other people's side of the story. And that's what the Angolan government did at the time when the war was going on. They just kept feeding us their narrative. They weren't giving us a Savim point of view, perspective. They were brainwashing us to be against Savimbi. Now, 22 years later, after the war, 23 years later, we're watching all these old videos from 1980s, 90s, when Savimbi was speaking his heart out to the Angolan people, the amount of passion he had for Angola. Who killed Savimbi wasn't the government, it's us, the public, who killed him. And that's the same thing that happened to Gaddafi. His people killed him because the narrative, the one side of the story kept being fed to the population. And this is what's happening in the UK. We're being fed one side of the story to anger us, to upset us, so that we can turn this country upside down. Civil war is on the brink. It's literally on the edge. But the government is waiting for us to trigger it. But we shouldn't do that. We should stay composed and go and go the opposite direction of what it is the government wants us to do. No to digital ID. And let's stop fighting. Let's stop fighting the immigrants. Because the enemy is literally staring us in the face. The enemy is there, is number 10, is there. But we're shifting our focus to this distraction that they've given us, to anger us, to upset us, to fight against each other, to turn this country upside down, so that when it gets so bad, they can say, listen, this is the solution to the problem. And because we're so blinded, we will accept it. We are going to accept. Now look at it this way, right? When the government has a plan, they always got a plan A and B, if not a C. When the government if they fail their plan A and B, C is very extreme. They've got 3 solutions. They gave us the digital ID. No, first we've had more prime minister in this country than we can ever count on one hand for the past 15 years. It just keeps getting worse. Every prime minister that getting power, it keeps getting worse. Now they're giving us the digital ID is the solution for the borders. Majority, after signing the petition, are against the digital ID. Clearly. The third thing, it is going to be extreme. I don't know if I'm allowed to mention on the group, based on the YouTube policies. I don't think I'm allowed to mention, but you know what I mean. It is going to be so bad that the blame will be shifted to the immigrants. Because remember what happened in Southport, right? What happened in Southport was meant to be the trigger to turn this country upside down. But luckily, majority of the population did not take the bait. It was horrible what had happened. It was horrible, you know. And one of the most sensitive topics is always children. And what had happened to those children was horrible. Me having children myself, watching that news, it was horrible what had happened. And they knew this would trigger the public. Nothing worse than attacking children. That happened. Only a small riots and discrepancy happened in the country. I guess that wasn't enough. Let's extend the border. Let's open the door wider so more can come in. Okay. Yeah, it's triggering the population, but it's not getting, it's getting bad, but it's not that bad, but it's getting bad. You know, the English people are standing up. So let's introduce the solution of digital ID. Okay, people are not complying. They're not agreeing with this digital ID idea. Let's go to plan C, which is going to be so bad that majority of the native English people will they will not look at the government. They will look at the immigrants. They will look at the people that are coming into the country and turn into civil war. And that's exactly what the government wants. So what I'm saying is that do not fall for it. Do not fall for it. If it's war they want, do not do that. You know, what we need to do is come together. The power lays on the people. The people are the ones with the true power. We are the one with the true power. We are the ones who decide how the narrative turns out. People no longer want to pay for TV license. They don't want to watch mainstream media. But the government keeps insisting that we should watch mainstream media, that they should have control of the narrative because it's easier to control us. Young people, do not believe everything you read, everything you watch. Again, stop watching short content online. Watch long content online. Understand what you're watching. Develop the habit of critical thinking. Journey of Youth. I think I have said enough. If you're new to my channel, do subscribe, like, and comment. Again, love everybody. Protect one another. Protect children and women. Put your neighbors, love your neighbors, like the Bible says, and let's not turn on one another, because we are not the enemies. You know, your neighbor is not the enemy. The enemy are the people in power. You know, whilst we are here killing each other, they are out there sipping champagne and whiskey. Like and subscribe, guys.